Aldi's has a $40 Thanksgiving meal deal, which is absolutely amazing. But I wanted to see if I could come in for a little bit less. I wanted to see if I could do Thanksgiving dinner like I usually do for about $25. So let's see what I picked up. First of all, turkeys are at an amazing price right now. They're about 77 cents a pound. So this 14-pound turkey was about $10 and change. And then I picked up this box of stuffing mix, and this is the turkey stuffing mix. I usually like to get the cornbread stuffing mix and then also make a pan of my own cornbread. They didn't have the cornbread stuffing mix, they just had the turkey flavored, chicken flavored, and herb flavored. And interestingly enough, the herb flavored was about 10 cents higher than just the chicken or the turkey. So I got the turkey flavored, and then of course I'll make my own pan of cornbread and make my cornbread dressing to go along with that. The other thing that I did pick up, which I needed, was chicken broth. Now I do make my own broth, and I do have some broth in the freezer, but I don't have enough, and I don't know if I'll have time to make more. So I went ahead and picked up a carton of the Chef's Cupboard chicken broth, and then 2 boxes of the mac and cheese. I always tend to put these upside down, but I did pick up these 2 boxes of Chef's Cupboard mac and cheese. They were 58 cents a box. They come with a cheese sauce packet in it that you add the milk to, put it together, and you've got mac and cheese. However, I know that would not be sufficient for my family. They would be like, what? What's going on here? So I did pick up a package of sharp cheddar, and then I will shred this up. I will add it to this mac and cheese, and then I'll also probably put it in egg. Like I will tend to do what I normally do for my regular mac and cheese. So got that, got the cheddar cheese. Now let's take a look at the side dishes that typically go along with Thanksgiving dinner. So we will typically have corn, and they have canned vegetables at Aldi right now, 50 cents a can. So I picked up some corn, and I picked up 2 cans of green beans, and a can of evaporated milk. Now I know green bean casserole is a staple in many households. It is not in mine. We will either have plain green beans, or my sister makes this really fancy green beans with potatoes in it and just a little bit of maybe a hint of meat. So I'll make my sister's green beans and potatoes. We'll have the corn. And I needed some carrots, not only to put some on the table, but I also needed some carrots for the turkey. This little bag of baby carrots was only 89 cents, which was a pretty good deal. And I picked up the fresh cranberries so that I can make my own. I've gotten to the point where I like making my own cranberry sauce when I can, and I do have the time. Plus, the can of cranberry sauce ready-made was $1.39 or $1.59. I'm not sure which one. Whereas the bag of fresh cranberries was just 99 cents. So I can make my own cranberry sauce and save money there as well. And then I'm going to make the mashed potatoes, and so I got this bag of potatoes, which is about $3.39 at Aldi, and I'll have potatoes left over. I'll have potatoes for the green beans and potatoes. I'll also have potatoes for the mashed potatoes, and then I'll still have potatoes left over that I could do maybe some hash browns or something like that for breakfast the next day. So I'm doing good with that. Now you might note I did pick up this bag of apples here at Aldi. There's no pumpkin pie on this table, or rather on this counter, and my family's not a big pumpkin pie eater. They prefer sweet potato pie or some kind of an apple pie or pecan pie. So I'm going to make either an apple pie or an apple crisp for our dessert. My daughter-in-law, who is a dessert maker, will be bringing either a peach cobbler or a sweet potato pie. So I don't need to be worrying about that. And then one of my sisters, who is the sweet potato maker, will be bringing candied sweet potatoes. And another one of my sisters, who is the potato salad maker, will be bringing potato salad. So you're probably thinking, Well, I thought you said you were doing Thanksgiving for $25 or thereabouts, and I am. But keep in mind that when you're providing Thanksgiving dinner, when you're making Thanksgiving dinner and you're inviting over other people, you don't have to do everything yourself. Delegate to whoever's coming to bring something that is on your menu. So when you extend that invitation, one of the first things they should say is, well, what can I bring? And so my sister, who's a potato salad maker, knows I want her to bring potato salad. My sister, who's the sweet potato maker, well, no, I want her to bring the sweet potatoes. And then my daughter-in-law, of course, is going to bring some desserts. She will also bring the collard greens because her husband does not like anything made with pork. So she makes collard greens really good, but also in a way that he likes them. And everybody else likes them too. So she'll bring that. So I will have delegated out certain aspects of the dinner for others to bring, so to help out, because if you're coming to sit down to pick up a plate and probably going to want to take a plate home, you really need to provide something if you can. Now, here's the other thing. If you don't have anyone that is bringing things in and you absolutely positively have to provide it all and you only have $25 to spend, that if you take these apples out, because this apples was about $4 for this bag, that puts you under $25 right there. Or you could get just a few of the apples, weigh them out so that you have just enough maybe to make a little applesauce and do some kind of a dessert with the applesauce. Because any kind of pumpkin pie, pumpkin dessert, even a can of pumpkin is going to run you a little bit more than that. And you don't have to have the pumpkin pie. Now, some of the things that you don't see on this counter includes those pantry staples that Aldi believes you should already have. Things like flour and sugar and cornmeal and butter and milk and eggs and the spices, the flavor boosters, those things that you need to really give a meal that flavor, that pizzazz. So those are the things that are not included in the Aldi's $40 meal deal. I'm going to be pulling those things from my pantry. I'm going to be making 2 pans of cornbread to make my cornbread dressing, as well as to have cornbread to serve at the table. With my apple dessert, I'm going to be pulling my oatmeal and sugar and brown sugar and different spices to go along with that. As well as for my mashed potatoes, I'm going to be pulling my milk and butter and salt and pepper and garlic powder and that kind of thing to juice those up. And of course, I'm going to need my seasonings for my turkey. So I've got poultry seasoning and honey and all that kind of thing in my pantry. So I will be pulling from my pantry as well as the goodies that you see here to put this Thanksgiving meal on the table. And once again, remember, if you're inviting others over for dinner, you don't have to do everything yourself. So you can delegate people to bring a part of the dinner. And what are we having to drink? Well, I'm in Indiana, so you can serve iced tea with any meal, and we'll be having iced tea. I'm not spending a lot of extra money on pop or soda, as they say in other areas, but we're going to have iced tea and water. And of course, there'll be coffee for dessert. So now let's talk about how to go about getting things started. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a pan of cornbread. That way I can have it ready, it can sit out on the counter and dry out so that when I'm ready to make the stuffing, the cornbread is nice and dry and crispy so that it'll make a good stuffing. I don't want the cornbread to be hot and warm or it'll make heavy dressing. So I get that cornbread made first. The other thing I'm going to make is get my cranberry sauce made, because you can make that 2 to 3 days ahead, sit it in the fridge, and it'll be like wonderful on Thanksgiving Day. And I'll also put my turkey into brine so that when I'm ready to bake it, or shall I say when I'm ready to roast it, Thanksgiving morning, it's already been prepared. So let me get this stuff put away and we'll get some things started. This video is brought to you by Aprondiva. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. Visit us at www.aprondiva.com. I like to start with the cornbread for my dressing. Making it a day or two early gives it time to dry out just enough to absorb all the flavors later on. Milk. This is a simple from scratch batter poured into a well-greased cast iron skillet. Baked until golden, then left out to rest. It's one of those quiet prep moments that makes Thanksgiving Day so much smoother. So the toothpick that I inserted into the cornbread came out clean, so the cornbread's done. I'm going to let it sit here to cool, but I'm actually going to let it sit out on the counter overnight so that it can get nice and dry. Now it's time to make the cranberry sauce, and I like to make that ahead, set it in the fridge, and let the flavors melt together. And it is so simple to make. So if you ever think, well, what can I learn to make it mine, that I can bring to dinners? Cranberry sauce is one of those things. So when someone says, well, what can you bring? You could say, I can bring the homemade cranberry sauce. Let me show you how easy it is to make. You add 1 cup of water, and we're also going to add a cup of sugar. And we're going to let the sugar dissolve before we add the cranberries. Now we're going to add our cranberries. And I need 2 teaspoons of orange zest. So I'll go ahead and zest this orange while I'm waiting for those cranberries to come to a boil. And I'm just taking the orange off of this peel, not going down to the pith or the white part, which is not very tasty. That's probably one. Now, if you like, you can add about 1/2 cup of orange juice to the water and the sugar. The flavor of oranges and cranberry just really complement each other. And I should have put that orange juice in a little bit sooner. I got distracted. I'm going to turn this down so that they just kind of simmer. And as my little Morgie says, the cranberries are pop, pop, popping. Okay, so I'm going to add a pinch of salt, the orange zest, give that a good stir, and the pinch of salt just helps to balance that tartness and the sweetness of the cranberry sauce. I'm going to just set it aside and let it cool. Just look at that. This is good. Next up is the turkey. I'm using a dry brine, which means all the flavor goes right under the skin and into the meat. And this video is in collaboration with Miss Leona at Ebony Ivy and Time with Leona Dooley. So be sure when you're done here to go over and check out to see what she's cooking up over there. I loosen the skin. Rub the brine inside, outside, and under, then add my special seasoning blend. Once it's all seasoned, I cover it and let it sit in the fridge for 48 hours. That time really helps the salt and spices do their work. It's the secret to a tender, juicy bird. And after handling any kind of raw poultry, I always clean the sink and counters with a disinfectant. It's an important step that keeps my kitchen clean, safe, and ready for the next round of cooking. My preferred product is Clorox. Today I'm using the Clorox multi-purpose cleaner, which is safe to use around children, pets, and food. On day 2, I move on to the macaroni and cheese. This is one of those dishes that tastes even better when it's made ahead. While the noodles boil, I wash my apples for the cobbler. My family prefers apples over pumpkin, so that's what we're having this year, apple cobbler. I'm using Aldi's store brand boxed mac and cheese, but I'm giving it a little upgrade by adding some shredded cheddar, evaporated milk, an egg, and just a touch of chili sauce for richness and a little zing. Once it's baked, the top is bubbly and golden. And the best part is it'll reheat beautifully on Thanksgiving Day. The filling comes together with butter, brown sugar, lemon juice, and a little flour to thicken, and then the warm spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice. I also like to add a spoonful of apple jelly for an extra boost of flavor. For the topping, I mix a simple batter using pantry staples: flour, salt, baking powder, dried buttermilk, and vanilla. Once the batter is ready, I pour it over the apples and swirl it gently to make pretty ripples on top. Then it gets a sprinkle of cinnamon sugar before baking. About 30 minutes later, the cobbler comes out, golden and fragrant. And honestly, the kitchen smells like apple pie. Next up, I make the dinner rolls. These start with a simple yeast mixture. Just warm water, sugar, and yeast. That way I can tell whether or not my yeast is active. Once I know that, I add softened butter, eggs, and flour. I use my KitchenAid stand mixer to bring it all together. But if you don't have a KitchenAid, you can absolutely knead this by hand. I cover it with plastic wrap and a tea towel, then set it aside to rise. I want it to double in size, so that takes about 2 hours. Once the dough has risen, I turn it out on a dough board and knead in extra flour until it's just right. For some reason, the dough is extremely sticky, so I'm wondering if I lost count when adding my flour to the mixer, and instead of adding 5 cups, I only added 4. But once the dough is where it needs to be, I shape the rolls by folding them into little pockets and placing them in a greased cast iron skillet. They'll rest in the fridge overnight and be ready to bake fresh the next day. And that wraps up day 2. Little by little, we're getting closer to a full Thanksgiving meal without the last-minute rush or exhaustion. Each step is simple, but together they add up to a stress-free holiday. Day 3 is all about the turkey, the star of the show. I start by washing and prepping my celery, onions, and carrots. These will go into the bottom of the roasting pan to create a flavorful base for the drippings. And I always save a few extra pieces to tuck inside the cavity of the bird, along with a few lemon slices. Throw away your veggie peelings. Save them for broth later in the week. That way, nothing goes to waste. Next, I'm ready to make a simple basting mixture. In a small saucepan, I melt butter with olive oil, add thyme, rosemary, and a little minced garlic, some onion, and let everything bloom together. A touch of brown sugar, a drizzle of honey, and a little bit of lemon pepper seasoning brings it all together. While that simmers, I stuff the turkey with the onions, celery, and lemon slices. Then I truss the turkey and set it in the roaster. And then I wash my hands well before basting it with that buttery mixture. I roasted at 450 degrees for about 30 minutes to get the skin nice and golden. Then I lower the temperature to 325 until it reaches an internal temperature of 165 degrees. I'll baste it just once or twice during the roasting process. I'm being careful not to let out too much heat. When it's done, I let it rest for about an hour before my husband carves it. And he does this by removing the joints first, then slicing the breast meat. Turkey prepared this way turns out juicy, tender, and full of flavor. On Thanksgiving Day, it's all about bringing everything together. The dressing, the gravy, the mashed potatoes, and even the tea. I start with the cornbread dressing. I wash and peel more celery, onions, and carrots. Give them a rough chop, and then run them through the food processor until finely chopped. If you don't have a food processor, you can saute the veggies instead so they soften up before you mix them in. I crumble up my cornbread and pour it into a large mixing bowl. Then I add a bag of Aldi's turkey flavored stuffing mix for extra texture and seasoning. Along with the chopped veggies. A few tablespoons of melted butter, some homemade vegetable broth, a can of cream of chicken soup, and a bit more chicken broth until it's moist but not soupy. I stir everything together, then pour it into a buttered baking dish and bake it at 350 degrees until the top is golden and lightly crisp. While that bakes, I start the gravy. I simmer the turkey neck in a pot with water, onion, and a few veggie scraps to make a rich broth. Once it's ready, I strain it, then melt some butter in a clean pan, whisk in flour, and slowly add the broth back in to make a smooth, flavorful base. A splash of turkey drippings adds wonderful flavor. And I finish it off with the gravy packet from the turkey. My gravy is seasoned to taste, and then I simmer it until it's thick and velvety. Next, I make a pot of iced tea using the tea bags from the pantry. No need to splurge on soda. I combine raspberry zinger, lemon zinger, and a few black tea bags for a refreshing drink. I add just a half a cup of sugar to give it a nice balance. You can sweeten it to your taste. Then it's time for the mashed potatoes. I give the potatoes a good scrub. Peel and chop them into even chunks before boiling them in salted water. Once they're fork tender, I mash them in my stand mixer with butter, sour cream, cream cheese, and a splash of heavy cream for richness. I season them with garlic powder, onion powder, and a little of Miss Leona's house seasoning. And just so you know, when a recipe says season to taste, that means season it to your family's taste. Then I pour them into an oven-safe dish. Make a few trenches on the top. And then I pour on melted butter so that it pools in the rivulets. It's a simple touch that makes them beautiful to serve. And yes, these potatoes are quite decadent, but I only make them at Thanksgiving and Christmas. By now, everything is ready. I'll take a few minutes to arrange it all on the counter, leaving space for the dishes that others are bringing. And when the day finally arrives, you'll be able to reheat everything slowly and actually enjoy the holiday. No rushing, no stress, no chaos, just good food and good company. The turkey will still be juicy, the rolls will be warm, and the house will smell like Thanksgiving. Now, let's talk about that turkey for a second. And speaking of the turkey, since you cooked it the day before, you want to make sure it is still moist and juicy the day you're ready to serve it. So one of the things you can do is once you've got it carved, put it in airtight freezer bags and store them in the fridge. And then once you get them out, you can use something like this Crofton Dutch oven. Put the slices in the pot, pour in a little chicken broth, put the lid back on, and then put it in the oven at 200 degrees a couple of hours before you're ready to serve so that it can begin to warm up. And you can have other things in the oven warming up with it at the same time. If you choose not to slice it and you want to keep the turkey whole, then just make sure you wrap it very well with some plastic wrap. And the beauty of spreading things out over several days is that you can enjoy the process and be ready when your guests walk in the door. Remember, you can set a beautiful Thanksgiving table, hearty, very satisfying, without spending a lot of money. And you can do this by using your pantry staples, pulling on things that you already have, and encouraging invited guests to bring a favorite dish. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend, because there may be someone you know who could also benefit from these tips. And don't forget, this Thanksgiving video is a collaboration with Miss Leona at Ebony, Ivy, and Time with Leona Dooley. So once you're done here, go on over and see what she's cooking up for Thanksgiving dinner. Because if you think I'm throwing down, wait till you see her in the kitchen. And what's on your table this Thanksgiving? Inquiring minds want to know. And from my house to yours, happy Thanksgiving.